Hey there, beautiful people. Laura here with your weekly reading. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoy getting this video over there and receiving those updates, or make sure you're signed up for the newsletter. I will post the link so that you can go ahead and have this reading and all the other goodies sent directly to you every Monday. So let's go into the main themes, or the main transits, I'll say rather, of the week ahead where astrology is concerned. Now, Monday on the 24th, I believe, if I'm correct, on the 24th, Mars is moving into Capricorn. And here it is what's called exalted, which basically means that in this position in Capricorn, it is at its highest potency, so to speak. And it's really where the rubber meets the road, because Mars gives us that unrelenting drive and determination that, obstacles and challenges be damned. We're going to just keep on trudging forward, keep on moving through to accomplish what we are trying to achieve. And Capricorn is lending a lot where those themes are concerned, that drive, that momentum. But rather than, just sort of launching into motion without really thinking about what we are doing, Capricorn helps lend a sense of structure, order, and efficacy where our actions are concerned. So we're moving deliberately, we're moving with intention. So when you combine Mars and the Capricorn placement, this energy of it, what we get is this really strong force where we are moving things forward. We're taking those next steps. We're building momentum, but we're building a lot of momentum because of the fact that we're very deliberate. We're purposeful in the actions we're taking, and even in the way in which we're communicating. So that is something where we want to really begin to bring our focus on Monday to that very big goal, that very sort of lofty aspiration that we have for 2022. So we don't want to think small. We don't really want to, smallify ourselves in any way with this Mars and Capricorn transit. Instead, between the 24th of January and the 6th of March, we really want to give ourselves permission to go big, go big or go home, as they say. So really get dialed into that one big thing that you really want to see come together, come to fruition within the scope of this year. That's where we really want to put our focus and attention while Mars is in Capricorn. Again, just that sense that we can do so much, even in the spans of, a couple of months, to drive things forward, and to do so with a sense of stability, groundedness, and very deliberate action. So we're really capitalizing, really using to the fullest extent, or working with to the fullest extent, this Mars and Capricorn placement. Now, Venus is also figuring in pretty prominently, as is Jupiter, actually. Venus is going to be heading out of its retrograde and into its forward trajectory this week. That's going to clear up a lot of confusion where important relationships are concerned. Any, kind of gray area is suddenly going to, become much more vivid, much clearer. We're going to feel as though we know what to do, we know how to do it, where certain key relationships are concerned. Is it the time to settle down with somebody? Are we taking things to the next level? All of those questions that you may have found to be very prominent on your mind over the course of the last few months. All of a sudden you feel as though, that light bulb's gone off, the answer is coming to you. But additionally, Venus tends to help us with creating greater flow, especially where our money money, our resources, our sense of magnetism and attraction are concerned. It's not just, Venus's territory is not just relegated to the romantic sphere. So, what I want to also highlight for us this week is that Venus and Pluto are also stationed in Capricorn. So, our career goals, the aspirations we have for our finances, where we may want to create greater levels of magnetism and our next level prosperity, if you will, in our careers or our life overall, those are going to be very big this week as well. Now, again, we're bringing a sense of deliberateness, a sense of groundedness, and a sense of very intentional action where this is concerned. So anything we're doing, it's not going to necessarily be reinventing the wheel, and nor is it going to be quick fix. So it's not going to be about, reading, a couple of aspirational articles and suddenly feeling like we are armed with everything we need to bring in that next level prosperity goal. It's more about what we are going to do consistently over a period of time. So now would be a good time to start researching any coaching programs, any prosperity programs, financial health programs, all of those sort of more structured learning or mentorship type relationships or programs, as well as that which is going to help us create change or improve or strengthen an area of our finances or our career that is going to be consistent, that is going to be structured, and that is going to be very much in the vein of um, kind of trying to think of the word it's like right on the tip of my tongue, but it's going to be more about the ways in which we strengthen ourselves for the long haul, which means really, as far as I'm concerned, not just, what we're learning, it's also how we're applying it. So though Venus can sometimes be a little bit of a showboat, this isn't really, the energy that we're really grasping onto, or that we're kind of grabbing onto where this is concerned. This is going to be about also the implementation, the integration, the embodiment. So it's going to be what we're learning and then how we're applying it. I have seen this a lot in my work and working with others, and I've done it quite a few times where the idea of just signing up for a prosperity course or a financial health program or what have you, it feels as though we're doing the doing. It can feel like that there's almost this mini sort of accomplishment in just kind of signing, on the dotted line, or in this case, sometimes clicking on the, buy now button. But if we don't actually take the time to go through the course, if we don't take the time to do the work, if we're not then integrating what we're learning outside of the course in the day to day, implementing the structure, the routines, the new practices, we're really not going to get a whole hell of a lot where, lasting change is concerned. So with this Venus and Pluto in Capricorn and Venus moving retro or moving out of retrograde, we want to look at ways that we can strengthen and solidify our magnetism, our understanding of our magnetism, how we can put it to work, how we can buoy and kind of give a certain level of strength to our financial health and practices, any skills we need to learn where our career is concerned. To get to that next level of prosperity, we may need to brush up on our skills. We may need to learn a few new ones. So it's going to be about what we can do in a very structured, very consistent way. And it's going to also be about what we're doing in the day to day around implementing and really integrating, turning knowledge into wisdom. And that's only achieved through action. So That is, those are what would say are some of the more impactful transits where this week is concerned. Again, being very, very mindful of what it is that comes to you, especially in the way of women. Venus has a really beautiful way of bringing forth influential women that we can learn from, that we can potentially work with, and also who may prove to be quite instrumental in some sort of long term goal where our finances, our career, and its trajectory are concerned. So pay attention to that as well. Okay, so the channeled message that came through when I was tapping into the energy for the week ahead was expressions of possibility. And in particular, looking for, maybe even expecting those expressions around us of the immense amount of possibility that is available and accessible for ourselves and our life. And when I was thinking of, okay, expressions, it's not just what we see, in its most literal form. It's keeping our eyes out for the serendipities, the synchronicities of life, keeping our awareness on the not so literal expressions and communications that we will often come into contact with from our guides or spiritual teams. So whether that's repeating numbers, whether that is seeing colors, or maybe a particular bird or animal quite frequently over the course of the next 7 days. And it can also be, maybe even seeing certain words that you're seeing in all these different spaces. Pay attention to those. Those are also expressions of the possibility, what is available to us, what is in fact coming towards us, and what we're opening and meant to sort of lean into and begin to cultivate in our lives. When we can approach life from this place of kind of what I think is a magical mindset, if you will, we start to foster this awareness around all the ways in which we are getting those signs, those symbols, those expressions of just how greatly we're supported in this life. And when we are going through this life, especially post pandemic, it can feel a little isolating. It can feel a little like our challenges are something we're going through alone, like we aren't supported in the various endeavors that we are, very passionate about. And a lot of times, all it really takes is coming at life with the expectation that those expressions of possibility, those expressions of support, of just how loved we are by all that is, however you tend to perceive that. They're around us constantly. We don't ever have to feel alone if we don't want to. We don't have to imagine we're an island trying to do something entirely on our own if we don't want to. And if we don't want to, it is very important because many of us, even though we would not necessarily consciously say, oh, I want to feel like I'm alone or I'm unsupported, in a way, if we are not actively engaging and willing to open our mindset, our eyes, our awareness to all the signs and symbols and expressions of our being supported and not being alone and being surrounded by our teams all the time, then the alternative, the flip side of that coin, is we feel we're alone, and sometimes that can feel very comfortable. Sometimes even unhealthy shit can feel very comfortable in its predictability, in its familiarity. So even though we may not consciously acknowledge or feel very good about the ways in which our actions would speak to wanting a non-desirable state, we want to still be in awareness that if it feels predictable and familiar, we may not always recognize that it doesn't mean it's a good thing for us. So coming at life with this magical mindset, being open and willing, it is very essential towards our receiving the confirmation of our support of all that is coming our way, all the signs and symbols that indicate, guess what? That relationship, that job, that whatever you've been hoping for, wanting, that really great relationship, with others, just non-romantically, friendships, that sense of having our crew. All of that is coming towards us. All of that is accessible. We are supported in the efforts and that we take to have that, to cultivate that in our lives. And we really want to begin to challenge ourselves, even and maybe especially when the known, the predictability, the familiarity of, feeling like it's all on our shoulders, that it's just us against the world, etc. We want to, especially in those moments, challenge ourselves to look for those expressions of possibility in our life. Okay, so looking into the tarot reading, the theme for the week is the Two of Wands. And the Two of Wands, I really enjoy this card because it symbolizes those times in life where we are at a crossroads. And typically it is between maybe one passion and another. So we may find lots of doors opening for us to, go after something that we really want. And because we can't straddle having one foot on one path and another on the other path, we have to make a decision. We have to make a choice. And the choice sometimes also can represent our sticking with what has been or venturing onto this new path that is becoming available to us, or that we are making a path that is now going to be where we are moving. When we look at the Two of Wands, what we want to pay attention to is that, number one, even if we have two, for example, let's use that as an example, two very, impassioned opportunities that are offered to us, it doesn't mean that by saying yes to one, we're saying no to the other indefinitely. We are just simply saying yes to this for right now. And at some point in time, I'm going to circle back to this other opportunity. Keeping in mind that anything that is truly meant for us is meant to be a part of our experience. We can't lose it. It's not going to be taken away. So don't get hung up in this, well, do I, don't I, which, of these really amazing opportunities that I'm very passionate about, do I say yes to, etc. Just kind of fall into this feeling of being in the body, of what feels good for right here, right now, knowing that if it's available now and it's meant to be a part of our experience, it's going to be available to us down the road. And if we are where I feel the energy is especially going to be pulling many of us, which is sticking with what has been the status quo, or setting our feet on this new path, welcoming this new opportunity, new life trajectory, then we want to sit and feel into what we may feel uncomfortable about, where we might be feeling resistance. A lot of times when I see the Two of Wands, it can indicate a time where the known, the predictability, the security even of the path we've been on, it can sometimes feel more alluring in that predictability and security than the unknown factor of a new path. So maybe, if I had to come up with an example, do I switch jobs? I got a job offer, do I take the chance of leaving a job that I have been at where I have great benefits? I'm comfortable, I know my role, or to go on to this path where who's to say how long this job may last. There's all these question marks, whereas those question marks aren't maybe as present, or at least in our awareness, in the current career or job. That is an example of sometimes that feeling of the known and unknown, and what is potentially most alluring. The world in the individual's hand that is sitting at this crossroads, or sitting between them, if you will, the world is very emblematic of the openness that comes with this energy, basically meaning that it's not a do or die. It's not a, I could make the wrong choice. There is no real wrong choice in this case, aside from maybe not choosing. So we don't want to necessarily get caught up in the rigidity, the very limited scope of perception of right versus wrong, good versus bad. We want to move more into just really opening to what feels most resonant, what our body is telling us, what our intuition is telling us that we feel most capable of accessing right here, right now. And maybe that's to stay where we have been and continue to reinforce that foundation. And maybe it is walking into the unknown, knowing that the unknown doesn't mean bad or wrong or any of those things. In fact, though we like to come up with 1,000 different ways to convince ourselves otherwise, the truth is that even in the supposed known or predictable elements of our life, there's still 1,000,000,000 gazillion question marks. There's so much room for, the unpredictable to happen. So even though we like to create this illusion of control or illusion of predictability, there's no real more or less predictable quality in either, sticking with what has been or moving into the unknown. It's just simply what can we learn, what feels good and accessible, and thrivability. Are we thriving where we're at? Or is there a new potential or an ability to open up new potential for our evolution, for the quality of thriving and growing and expansion on the new path, or can we cultivate that where we're at? So again, no right or wrong, no good or bad, just simply where we feel the most drawn, why we feel drawn towards that, and also where can we enhance our expansion, our thriving in our life in some way, shape, or form. What we want to lean into this week is the Three of Swords. And initially, I'm sure, like a lot of you, you're kind of like leaning into the Three of Swords. Like, even if you don't know what that card really kind of carries and the energy of it, it doesn't look super inviting. Why would I want to lean into that? Well, there's a few things. No, two are actually coming forward. One, we want to lean into the ways in which having our heart pierced, going through a sense of difficulty, heartbreak, maybe even betrayal, how that has really brought a gift into our life. Where in our life, especially over the course of the next 7 days, have we experienced those qualities of heartbreak, of pain, of betrayal? And in what ways have they shaped us? In what ways have they helped us to become a better version of ourselves? We don't typically learn or evolve or expand in only the good times of life. In fact, a lot of our refinement, if you will, comes through the flames of difficulties and, the forging of who we are, our strengths, our, the qualities that we want to lean into this week. They come from those challenging, heartbreaking, difficult periods of life where we kind of are cracked wide open, and instead of letting it scar and experiencing a closing of the heart, we actually work to understand, we work to see what is coming through that breaking open, that ripping open of our hearts and our feelings and all of the above. The other thing that comes forward with this is that we want to lean into what it is that we are learning from the experiences in our life and where we're not. So a lot of times when I see the Three of Swords, it represents the ability to learn from our experiences so that we can make better choices, we can make more informed decisions in some area of our life. And a lot of times it can be also how we react to the experiences of life. If I make a decision to touch a hot stove and learn that that results in a burnt hand and a not so great experience, I'm then armed with the ability to not touch a hot stove, a hot burner the next time I am exposed to one. The same quality is going to find us this week. Where are we repeating lessons? It can be same lesson, different package, but it's still overall us going through different iterations of the same lesson, either because we haven't learned it or we're still making choices, we're still having reactions or interacting with things in such a way that it begets, similar patterns or repeating patterns. We want to really pay attention to this because what we're called to release is, ooh, there's a lot of light coming in that window, is the devil. We want to tap into releasing the energy of shame, of guilt, and yes, of bondage around certain facets of our being. So when I see the devil and the Three of Swords as an energy to lean into and what we want to be aware of, what we want to release, it's very clear to me that many of us are going to come into contact with a series of repeating patterns or experiences, many of which we could harbor, guilt or shame, or we could even, feel as though our life has been sort of hijacked by these experiences. And we want to, instead of moving into this externally sourced perception, we want to come back to the remembrance that this pattern exists because my actions, my behavior, my interaction with this hasn't changed significantly enough to demonstrate I've learned the lesson. Even if I've learned it, consciously, it doesn't appear to have become an integration. It doesn't appear to be embodied. Otherwise, I wouldn't continue to come up against these patterns and these lessons and going through these same things. It comes into that internally sourced perception of I am in a position of changing this. And whether it is not reacting, whether it is making more informed decisions, more empowering decisions that support what I want, as opposed to supporting what I don't want, or all of the above, this week we really do want to see our heartbreak, our difficulties as being lessons, as being very pivotal information that we can work with, that we're shaped by, and honoring that. But we also want to examine why we continue to face certain experiences, patterns, etc., and what we can do to begin to change that, to really integrate the learning and to really set ourselves up so that going forward, sure, maybe it's going to come in here and there, but our reaction, our interaction with it is going to be so vastly different that we don't find ourselves in a similar experience going forward. We don't have that experience doesn't have the same impact on us and our life anymore, and therefore it's sort of checked off as a lesson learned, and we get to grow and evolve from there. So I hope that this reading helps you as you go about the week ahead. I want to hear your thoughts. Feel free to comment, to drop me a DM sharing how, these energies are coming through, what your expressions of possibility are, what are you seeing, what goodness is coming up for you, and maybe what are you learning? What has your heartbreak taught you, and how are you going to take that and integrate it in such a way that you can, sort of check a box where certain important and sometimes very consuming patterns and life cycles are concerned. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next week. Mwah.